Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly ag weather update brought to you by AgCarolina Farm Credit. Well, I thought we'd begin by taking a look at the last 14 days of total accumulated precipitation through early in the morning on Sunday. And certainly we can see the influences here of Florence. But I just want to let you know, North and South Carolina, you are not the only part of the country that is flooding right now. I got some other people that are sharing your pain. Like recently over the weekend, all the incredibly heavy rains that fell in parts of Oklahoma and Texas. We've had over the last couple of weeks some pretty strong onshore flow here in Texas. And there's even been quite a bit of Corn Belt flooding up here in the northern Corn Belt. So there have been several regions across the country that have been extremely wet, but repeated showers and thunderstorms were kind of the name of the game across parts of North Carolina overnight and in the night on Sunday night into early Monday morning. We had some places right in through here that saw over 5 inches of rain from some thunderstorms there getting up into the higher elevations. And then certainly just north of the border here in parts of Virginia, we saw some locations that also saw between 4 and 6 inches of rain. But the bigger question is, all the precipitation we saw over the last 3 days in this area, will it be making its way to the east and potentially over here to the Carolinas? That is a question we've got to answer, because outside of those regions we just saw in the overnight hours on Sunday getting into early Monday morning, much of North and South Carolina has been dry, which has been desperately needed as we continue to fight the floods in our major river systems. Okay, getting beyond that, let's take a look at what the overall flow pattern says so that we can start to set up and diagnose what the upcoming weather pattern is going to be to see if we continue to dry out. So you're looking here at a map that shows you the last 30 days of temperature anomalies. And what I want to focus on is the colder air that's been really established here in parts of Canada. We've seen an upper level trough feature that has really stretched from north central Canada going through the Pacific Northwest. And why I'm concerned about that is if we build up that pocket of colder air there, if the jet stream gets itself into a configuration such that it can unleash that colder air here into the northeast, possibly even in toward the southeastern United States, of course running through the Corn Belt first, well, those could be some major players in our temperature patterns moving forward. So as we always do, we need to diagnose what the upper levels of the atmosphere are going to do first. So here we are, we're going to watch the animation of the 500 millibar height anomalies put together by the European Models EPS. Now, what does that mean? That's a 51-member ensemble forecast. What we're looking for here is troughs and ridges. Ridges where the jet stream kind of bulges north, giving us warmer conditions like you see over here on the East Coast in the day on Monday, and then deep troughs like the one you see going through the northern plains here. Okay, as we get into this forecast, what I want you to really pay attention to is what we tend to see here along the southeastern part of the United States, really over the next 15 days in terms of troughing and ridging. When we get into the day on Tuesday, the major player will be the developing trough in the middle part of the country that will be kicking off a big low pressure system that's going to go through the eastern Corn Belt. And the question is, will the cold air from this one be able to get far enough to the south and east, or will this upper level ridge feature really kind of keep a lot of that colder air away? Now, what's setting up this whole pattern? Well, this ridge right here, this is off the west coast of North America, was sitting over Alaska. And watch what happens as I move forward here. You see that ridge, watch I'm going back and forth, retreats back toward Alaska. Now, why is that important for North Carolina weather? Well, as that retreats north, what that did was that prevented that first front from getting pretty deep down into the southeast. But what it did do is it displaced some colder air that was sitting in northern Alaska up here in the kind of the Arctic and pushed it right back down in the center part of the country such that we reinforced the depth of this trough. Now, why do you need to care about that? Well, by the time we get toward the end of this week, we could possibly see a deep enough trough producing a cold front that will go far enough toward the southeast that we could be bringing in some cooler weather toward the end of the week, at least cooler than average. But this ridge will be the dominant player as we move forward in the forecast, at least through the next 5 to 7 days. Now, watch what happens as I go out farther. You see what I see? I see the trough retreating into central kind of Canada, and I see the reestablishment of a large ridge sitting down here across much of the Gulf Coast and the southeast. I see the trough trying to elongate from basically the Hudson Bay, getting all the way over here to the Pacific Northwest. And north of that, big ridge in Alaska. Now, what does all that mean? If we end up having a trough oriented in this direction, which is more east-west rather than north-south, well, we may continue to see some drier conditions, and also we could see some warmer conditions as we move into the month of October along the Gulf Coast and southeast states. But I'll tell you this, the models are wanting to do this once we get through the first week of October. Now, we're getting pretty far here in the forecast, but it's wanting to reestablish a ridge out west with a broader trough feature that comes in just like this. Now, what that just simply means is that means more cooler risks for the Northeast and the Great Lakes. We might possibly be able to get some cold fronts that kind of finally seep far enough to the south and east, as we normally do this time of year in the fall, that get some cooler weather into our area. But at this point, we're pretty far out in the forecast, and so we're looking here, we're kind of being speculative here, looking here at the end of the first week of the month of October. All right, let's see what that does in terms of temperature patterns here in both the short and long term. Okay, I told you that as we get going with this week, on Tuesday, the major player is going to be the development of this front going through the Corn Belt. Because of that ridge, look, we see warmer than average conditions across the Carolinas, stretching all the way back over towards Texas and then up into the eastern Corn Belt. But watch as I get through the day on Tuesday and into the day on Wednesday. You see, what we tend to see here is that as that front slides south, we may not get it far enough toward, the Carolinas to really knock temperatures back, but certainly in the middle part of the country, much, much cooler than average weather behind that first front. I think you're going to have to wait all the way until Friday when the larger trough reinforces itself here over parts of kind of the north central plains, and a low pressure system goes racing on off toward the northeast, that we may get a cold front that comes streaking all the way into the Carolinas. And that may be our first chance over the coming days of having a higher risk of precipitation. I'm talking over 50%. Until then, under that ridge, a lot of scattered showers and storms. We'll take a look at that in a few moments. But as you saw, the reestablishment of the ridge gets there. And that's why as we get into the month of October, look at this. The warmth stays here. The cold air stays in Canada and the north interior states, and the battleground will be in the Corn Belt, not in the southeast in terms of these air masses. So we really see here that we're really going to hang on to a near average to slightly warmer than average pattern for probably the next several days, maybe 10 plus days. Okay, as we start the week, what are we watching? We're going to watch this trough build into this ridge. So this is the ridge that's going to be really supportive of those warmer temperatures. We are watching a tropical low sitting here off the coast that's going to skirt right up here like this underneath that ridge. But all the action is going to be in the Corn Belt with this first system, and it's going to stretch right in through here from Texas up into parts of maybe even parts of upstate New York. And this is the area I'm going to watch flooding along. That's because we're transporting a bunch of moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico under that ridge on that side. Now, when we kind of take a look at what's going on in terms of the flow of the atmosphere, check this out. Deep trough off of the west coast, big ridge in the Gulf of Alaska, builds into a trough here in the center states and up into a ridge. It is this ridge right in through here that's going to be bringing us some easterly winds and keeping things relatively free other than some hit or miss showers and storms. You can see the flow around it just like that, bringing those easterly winds in. Where are our cold fronts? Where the low develops here, there's one there and there's one there, but neither of these are going to be able to get far enough to the southeast to really affect the Carolinas. It's the systems here that are going to produce all the flooding in the region I just circled, which will get into the Appalachian Mountains. So to start off the week, it's easterly flow off the Atlantic Ocean, hit or miss showers and thunderstorms, warmer than average temperatures. What are we looking at in terms of high-resolution precipitation forecast getting us out through Wednesday of this week, Wednesday morning? Well, here it goes. That's it. You can see the easterly flow. You can see the hit-or-miss showers and thunderstorms. But because overall an upper-level ridge kind of dominates, all the action is going to be around that ridge right in through this area. So it's a hit-or-miss storm kind of beginning of the week. It's not until the end of the week where things start to come in with a little bit more of a bigger chance of rainfall. That's why the main flooding threat right now is to the north and west of the Carolinas as that system kind of ejects out of Texas and Arkansas and gets up into this area. Okay, when is it going to rain next for us? Well, let's take a look here at what the European model says. I kind of let it run all the way out to Thursday night because it'll be on Thursday night, if I kind of rock back and forth here, that we're going to see a couple of things. Let me step you back to Wednesday, okay? Wednesday, what do we see here? Well, around that upper level ridge, we do get moisture transport into this area, okay? So this is the hit or miss showers and storms. You can see right in through here, this is the position of that little weak tropical disturbance is going to skirt along the coast here. But what we're really going to have to wait for, let me kind of get rid of my drawings here. We're going to have to wait until we get into the night on Wednesday night into Thursday to see the front finally progress far enough toward the south and east that it could come across parts of the Carolinas. So you can see it there as I kind of rock back Wednesday night into Thursday and Friday as the chances for storms, more organized storms toward the end of this week. Beyond that, just take a look at what's going on here. We see that overall the pattern really stays active across the Corn Belt, possibly having a few more days to dry out here in parts of the Carolinas. But taking this much beyond about a week out in the forecast is kind of tricky looking at the operational model. And that's why I want to show you the ensemble. What we're going to see here is, look, when you get into parts of coastal Carolina, stretching all the way back down into parts of Georgia and Alabama, this is a region that over the next 15 days, multiple model runs want to keep it at normal precipitation or drier than normal. All the actions here to start, and then it's up here in the subsequent days. And as we talked about in terms of temperatures, let's now look beyond the next 5 days and look at day 5 through 10. That's the upper right-hand map. We can see the ridge reestablishes itself here while the trough is still sitting in that location. And that ridge helps keeps things warmer than average. And as I go from day 10 to day 15, so we're all the way up to a 15-day forecast, we still see that the model wants to hang on to near average to slightly warmer than average temperatures. So that's kind of what we're looking at here in parts of the Carolinas, getting us out through the next 15 days. I do want to tell you one thing that's going on that I want you to pay attention to. This is not the tropical Atlantic. We're out in the tropical Pacific. We are watching Typhoon Trami, I think is how you say it. And Trami right now is going to be recurving back up in to parts of the North Pacific flow. Now, why you should care about that in the Carolinas is this is where our weather patterns are established. If we do kind of a trough development here, getting in the Aleutian Islands, that can change the whole position of the jet stream, and that could affect temperatures and precipitation patterns for the Carolinas. But that's why we do these weekly updates, because about 4 or 5 days from now, when I finally know what this tropical cyclone is going to do here, we'll have a better idea on what that pattern is going to look like, and we'll have a brand new update for you by that time. So if we kind of transition from there, looking at the tropics and the Atlantic, here's the system we're watching this week that's going to skirt right here along the coast. This will certainly increase wind and wave action, but it's not going to make landfall. At least it's not forecast at this point. And this is certainly not going to be one of those major soaking events. You can see Leslie, a tropical storm sitting there and spinning the open Gulf. We're not really sure what Leslie's going to do at this point. Kurt's going to stay down here in the Lesser Antilles and go over as probably a tropical depression getting into the Caribbean, maybe making the Gulf, 10 to 15 days from now. So those are the major players we are keeping a close eye on in our forecast here. We hope you found this useful as you plan out your operations, and I certainly hope that the drier days that are at least going to come up at the beginning of this week continue to allow you to dry down after the epic flooding from Florence. But as I said, be paying attention to those pop-up showers and thunderstorms to start the week, and then toward the end of the week, we're going to be watching that cold front sweeping right in through like this. That may bring a better chance for some more organized showers and thunderstorms, bringing up our probability of precipitation above that 50% mark. So watch it carefully, keep an eye on the radar throughout the week. But with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up this forecast video. We at AgCarolina thank you for watching. Hope you look forward to our next update coming out next week. Thank you.